Hi, Minister. You, in your opening remarks, you referenced the Veterans Employment Strategy that your government launched in June of 2024, so about 16 months ago. Can you tell me how many more veterans are employed since June of 2024?
In the time that I've been with Veterans Affairs Canada, we have been working to roll out this program, to build engagement, to ensure that we are working on connecting the skills that veterans are releasing with.
So I have zero doubt about any of that. I'm sure you're doing everything that you within your strategy. What I'd like to know is what the results are. How many more veterans are employed? Has veteran unemployment reduced?
So at this moment, we are in the process of rolling the strategy out to make those connections so that we can track for that information.
I only have a limited amount of time, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're telling me that 16 months in, you're just starting to roll out the strategy. You have no way to tell us if there's been results in 16 months?
There has been results in terms of the engagement of employers.
Okay.
There has been
the result in terms of concrete, like how many veterans are employed? Because that's the end of the day. An employment strategy should be about having more veterans employed, should it not?
Very much so, and as you can imagine, collecting that information will take time because we will need to connect with the veterans.
When would you be able to get back to the committee to tell us a number?
We will continue to share information as it becomes available.
Okay. What about with your veterans homelessness strategy? That was introduced in April of 2023, 2.5 years ago now. Do you know how many homeless veterans there were in 2023 versus how many there are now? I would hope you're not still rolling that one out. That's 2.5 years.
That program has been moving forward, and simply put, one homeless veteran is too many. As you mentioned, that program has been rolling out in conjunction with the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure.
So do we know what the results are from that? Do we know how, like, the number of homeless veterans now compared to what it was in 2023 when it was introduced?
In the last data that we have from the census was in 2021. We will see new information following the 2026 census. Okay. I can speak to...
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I only have a limited amount of time. April 2023, you put out a strategy. 2.5 years later, in late 2025, you're telling me that the best data you have is from 2021. So you have no way of knowing whether what you're doing is working. Like, if you're going to measure success, don't you need to know what you've accomplished? You don't even know your starting point, let alone where you are now. So perhaps we'll move on then, since we don't seem to have any information there. Let me ask you about services. So in the time your government's been in office in 10 years, budget has more than doubled for the department. 26% increase, I think, in the last year alone. But I think you'd be really hard pressed to find a veteran anywhere who would say that they think that services are twice as good or twice as fast in that period of time. In fact, I don't think I'd have to bet. We can actually look at your departmental plans because they contain some metrics. A bit subjective, but they're metrics nonetheless. And in those reports, on just about every measure, veterans report lower satisfaction in terms of a number of different areas that your department provides. And it seems as though what your government's response has been is to push back the timeline to achieve your targets. So you've pushed back most of them in this year's plan from March of 2025 to March of 2027. I guess the question I'd have to you is, if you're not achieving success, even by your own measures, wouldn't it make more sense to change what you're doing rather than just make veterans wait longer for better results?
I can appreciate that waiting for benefits is incredibly frustrating for veterans. Many of them have started their period of waiting perhaps long before their application was submitted. You referenced the fact that funding has gone up, and so too has the number of veterans coming forward looking for supports, and we have continued to deliver services for all of those veterans. Whether one veteran or 10,000 comes forward, we will ensure and deliver supports for every one of them that is eligible.
I guess the challenge is, veterans themselves in your own metrics are reporting like that their satisfaction and the quality of service they're getting from VAC, their adjustment to post-service life, to the quality of programs they're receiving from VAC, all of those things they're showing that they're finding less satisfaction in those things. Yet, bigger budget, less results. So, I mean, you're a fairly new minister. Can you tell us what you've identified that you think isn't working right now and what you're going to do to fix it? Specific items that you think aren't working right now and specific suggestions on what you'll do to fix them.
I will counter your assessment of things that are not working.
Well, that's not my assessment.
Excuse me, Mr. Richard, I will have to interrupt you. I was to allow the minister to answer. It's up to you. We can hear her comments, or you can interrupt her again. It's up to you. Minister, I will allow you to end your conversation, and then we'll move on to our next round. Please, Minister.
I disagree with saying that they're not working. With that said, there are actionable steps that we are taking to improve the process, including redesigning the disability benefit application form so that we are making it more inclusive and clearer, the questions, simplifying and standardizing the medical questionnaire to make completion of the forms easier and quicker, and incorporating technology to support decision making so that our decision makers can be focused on that and be supported with summarized information that can then help them to spend time engaging on the decision making.
Thank you, Minister. I just want to remind all members here that the Minister is here to answer questions. If we want to play monologue, I'm fine with that, but I would urge each of you, out of respect, to allow the Minister the time to answer the questions as being asked. Madam.
Thanks. Minister, how many, including the Women's Veterans Council, how many ministerial advisory groups do you have advising you?
We have 6 advisory groups. We have the Women's Veterans Council. I believe there's one other departmental one, and I would turn to my officials to add and to clarify that.
Okay, that's fine. We'll have some time with them in the next hour. Can you tell me how many of them you've sat down and met with personally?
I have met with all of the advisory. I have met with the chairs of all of the advisory committees, and I have met with the Women's Veterans Council. Okay. And I've met with a number of the other stakeholders and advisors, including the Ombudsman, and a number of stakeholders that represent veterans across the country.
And how often do you plan to meet with those advisory groups?
My plan is to meet with them on a consistent basis, but I do not have a set schedule per se.
Okay. We had a witness here 2 weeks ago that indicated that on the Women's Veterans Council, that indicated that she felt like there was absolutely no access to you as the minister, and went on to she didn't say, she went on to say that she felt like they were just treated as a prop rather than something that is actually genuinely designed to provide advice, and also that everything seems to be filtered through the department. What would you say to that, and what would you do to try to improve that?
I first off, I thank Captain Le Soleil for their service and for their participation in the Women's Veterans Council. I believe that is the witness you're referring to, and I had the opportunity to watch their testimony. And I thank all of the members of the Women's Veterans Council specifically, and all of the advisory groups for participating and volunteering their time to be a part of this. I appreciate the value that the women bring specifically from the Women's Veterans Council to informing public policy and sharing their experiences. And I've heard and I appreciate the captain's feedback specifically about the Women's Veterans Council and the request for more clarity on a mandate.
I suspect that probably part of this comes down to, I think Madame Gaudreau was kind of alluding to this too, is that, although you may spend some time with them, you may hear what they're saying, they don't really feel listened to because nothing changes, because there's no results that come from it. It goes back to some of the questions I was asking earlier, like there doesn't seem to be results. Like we come up with a strategy and then you can't even tell us whether there was really results out of it. And I think that's probably where veterans feel like they're not listened to. Like they might physically be in a room, but they don't feel like they were actually listened to and that their suggestions were taken into account. And so I guess that's really where I think there needs to be some improvement. And I'll just turn to an example of that, and that's the construction of the monument to the mission in Afghanistan. It's kind of been on the books for a long time now. Over 2 years ago, there was a design that was announced, but no construction. And in your annual report, it says, and I quote, "The construction of the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan is a priority for the department." And I think veterans see things like that and they say, if that's how you treat your so-called priorities, how can I ever expect to get any results? Tell us where that monument's at in terms of its construction. Tell us why veterans should believe that when you say things are going to be better, they'll be better when your answer, which I know will be, there is no construction happening on that monument. Why should veterans believe what they're hearing? Why should they expect better results?
So that monument is incredibly important as a symbol of reflection and commemoration to recognize all those who served and their families. We took in feedback from thousands of veterans about how they wish to be acknowledged for their contributions, and progress is being made. And to give you more specific updates, I would turn to one of my officials to be able to share those details.
We will look at the officials, maybe detail in the round two, Minister, with your permission. I will.
Thanks to the witnesses for being here. The Minister, you've achieved more than your two predecessors in the fact that you're here. Their two predecessors never actually made it to our committee, so I thank you for being here today. I noted at the top, I didn't realize this, that you're also the Associate Minister for National Defense. Appreciate that as well. We've got reports in the media around the chaplains, and we've had this problem in the past as well, that the chaplains are being given directives that in their capacity as Canadian Armed Forces chaplains, that they're not allowed to pray or participate as in their particular religious faith in Remembrance Day services. Can you confirm or deny or explain where these reports are coming from?
As you mentioned, I am still relatively new in the role, so I haven't gone through a season of Remembrance Remembrance Day activities yet. We're just heading into that part of it. So with that said, I would turn to my officials who have been involved in that to perhaps speak to that.
Okay, we will be able to hear from them in the next hour, so thanks. I'll turn my time over to my colleague, Mrs. Wagenthal.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, Veterans Affairs continues to struggle to serve veterans in a timely manner. We know that. In 2021, VAC made the arbitrary decision to move the provision of medical, psychosocial, and vocational rehabilitation out of the day-to-day operations of Veterans Affairs to a third-party provider, actually an international and national contractor to administer. Namely, it's called Partners in Canadian Veterans Rehabilitation Services, PCVRS. Right. So on June 9th, 2021, they were awarded $560 million for a 5-year contract, which has been increased to $572,751,466 with a contract end date of December 31st, 2026. So that's about an increase of a half year on the contract and $13 million. More than 3 years later, the November 2024 overview of your mandate letter states all commitments are underway on track, except for one. Wait times. Some challenges or delays exist, and you recognize some challenges in meeting its target of achieving service standards over a 12-month period. And while processing times have improved overall, it actually states a growing number of applications are exceeding the 16-week standard, giving reasons, one very important one, that challenges are happening with retaining temporary employees because the funding's ending in 2026, so I'm assuming people are thinking, I'm not going to have a job, and perhaps they're moving on. So it appears that in 4 years, engaging PCVRS has not improved outcomes, and VAC's internal need for internal decision makers, it says, has not diminished. So I'm a little confused about the lengths we went to move everything out of VAC's day-to-day, and we're not getting the improvements that I would think we would have by now. So I'm wondering, how often do you meet, or do you plan to meet, with LifeMark or WCG International to brief you and senior officials specifically on the progress of that program, to see where those shortfalls are, and also with, needing the departmental employees? Will you meet regularly with those two groups? And what specifically are the departmental employees, the decision makers, doing that are in VAC that impact PCVRS? Do you understand my question? It sounds a little convoluted to myself. But the question is basically, will you be meeting with them to see what's happening here? We're not making the improvements that I think we should be seeing for over almost $600 million and services by international companies that this is what they do. So why are we still struggling so much, and will you be in touch regularly with them to see how we can make things better?
Minister, you have, just to answer the question briefly, please.
Okay. So I will start and then to answer, and then you may wish to follow up with the officials to answer more parts of the question. So as we've talked about, we want to ensure that veterans are getting the best care possible, and we know this is a large country to service. So by connecting and moving into the service contract, we were able to increase the number of service providers that were available overall to 12,000 individuals, or 12,000 service providers to provide services for our veterans. And we are continually reviewing the process. In terms of some of the more specifics, I will let the department officials answer those for you.
Thank you very much. For, I do believe, last 5 minutes, Mrs. Ertl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Thank you for being here today, all of the officials. The topic of veterans homelessness is very important to my riding. There is a former armory in Amherst, Nova Scotia, that I and the community are hopeful can be turned into veterans housing. And I'd very much look forward to having further discussions with you about this topic, as I will be bringing forward a private member's motion, or I brought it forward. It'll be debated later this fall, and the motion deals with federal surplus buildings. So my question to you is, it was a question earlier about homelessness, but didn't really address it. Would you outline to the committee, please, your perspective on the importance of the Veterans Homelessness Program?
Question. As you mentioned, we spoke a little bit about housing. The number one priority is to ensure that no veteran is facing homelessness. And we know that homelessness is a complex and spans a variety of different circumstances across this country. So with that said, we are working in conjunction with the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure to improve housing for veterans and for families. The Veterans Homelessness Program pilot is in its second year, and the learnings from year one are improving the program, and we're strengthening results based on the results that have come from this first year. We've made progress, and there's more to do. Veterans Affairs Canada recognizes that we need to have both short-term transitional housing and long-term housing or long-term supportive housing to meet the needs of our veterans. And by strengthening partnerships with community organizations and engaging veterans and their families, we're going to ensure that we're bringing those pieces together. I had the opportunity to, again, meet another one of our veterans that's actually at one of the veteran housing units here in Ottawa recently. He was a more senior veteran who, prior to moving into Veteran House, was living on the street. He is now has a permanent home, and he welcomed me into his home, and he took great pride in touring his home with me to share the experience. Veterans House is something that was possible because of the investment from one of the programs through the Veterans Homelessness Program. And this is an individual, this has changed his life. I also had the opportunity to meet with another veteran this summer while I was in Kingston. They were an individual that had released while dealing with some long-term ongoing substance challenges. They were able to go into the transitional housing that Homes for Heroes had and was able to get things stabilized for themselves, to be able to still engage with their children in a safe environment. That individual has now gone on to be in permanent housing with her children living with her. And in the week following the day I met her, she was also going to be becoming the guardian for her nephew who was in need of care. So this was an individual where that investment in housing and in supportive housing with wraparound supports was actually able to change the trajectory of the path she was going at that moment. And that was really a really poignant moment for me, because that is the tangible impact. We talk about programs, we talk about our briefing papers, we talk about things that are intangible. But when we connect with the veteran who's had this experience is what brings it to life and is able to say, this is the difference that we're making by making these investments. I hope that kind of answers the question.
30 seconds. Thank you. It does. Thank you very much. You've been asked a lot of questions today about meetings with stakeholders and advisory groups, and I would like to just give you an opportunity if there's anything else you'd like to add or clarify around plans for further meetings.
Thank you. The engagement with veterans, each veteran is going to have a unique experience, a unique story, because they're a unique individual. And the most important thing is that we are trying to do our best for every veteran out there. We want to make sure they have the care and the support and the service they need. That comes from hearing the feedback of their individual experiences, because that's what can inform the opportunities for growth. As I said, I believe that opportunities for growth are always possible. And as we continue to invest in our veterans, that is one way that we can do that. So I will be continuing to meet with veterans